I have to tell you, listening to everyone leading up to this point, it's pretty exciting. I mean, I'm thinking, wow, I want to go over to Kenwood and I want to sit in your music room, and I love history. That just sounds fantastic, and I do like doing social studies with my students. And then I think about, going over to Metro and I mean, all of it. So as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, now focus. You have to be doing yours soon, because now my mind's going like, oh, I want to think about that, and I want to think about that. And this is where the mindfulness comes in, okay? So I call this the game changer. I've been teaching a long time. This is my 31st year, and I have taught kindergarten through 5th grade. So I've had a lot of experience with elementary kids, lots of different initiatives, different curriculum, and I call it the game changer just because I feel like this is one of the things that I really got into probably about 5 years ago, and I feel I've seen the biggest impact with my students when I incorporate mindfulness along with the reading, the writing, the science, the social studies, everything else we teach in our classroom in the elementary school. So what I'm going to do is hopefully just explain to you a little bit what it looks like in my classroom each day, what we do, and I have some things that the students want you to know about, so I will share those with you as well. First of all, I mean, mindfulness is such a big buzzword right now, and I think there's a lot to mindfulness, and so pretty much in a nutshell, and the way we describe it in the classroom is mindfulness is being in the moment, having an awareness of our thoughts, our feelings, our bodily sensations, and surrounding environment. And so we talk about this with our kids. And now, like as I was listening to everyone else, like before we even got started tonight, I was like, oh, I wish I could go first. I wish I could go first. And as each person went, my heart rate started to accelerate. And for a little bit, I'm like, okay, I don't think I can hear very well. And it's all these feelings you get, you start to feel warm. And I'm like, all right, I'm recognizing this about myself, so what do I need to do about it? And this is exactly what we're trying to teach the kids. And you're going to hear me use the word self-regulation, and you heard that before already. We want the kids to learn how to self-regulate. There's a lot going on in our world, a lot. They hear a lot, and I'm with the little kids. But they're still hearing things in their families. They're hearing social media, seeing social media. They are being exposed to all kinds of things, watching TV. We don't always have the nicest things on TV. Kids have their own things in their families going on. And so even though they're little, this is the time to plant those seeds where we can start introducing them to what are we going to do? We are in control of ourselves, so how do we do it? So the pictures there are some of my students. The first two, that was sitting in a wake pose. What I'm going to tell you is every morning we start with yoga, every morning from the first day of school. And I'm not a yoga instructor. I am certified in a program called Yoga Calm. So I did get certified in that. But we just do basic yoga, and it is a way to get yourself mentally, physically awake, ready. The picture in the middle, the kids are doing our Cobra, and they really, really do enjoy doing it. There are a few that it takes them a month or two to get into it, and I'm like, no pressure, just stand and breathe, that's all you have to do. And so they just, it's amazing just how finally after a couple months they'll join in. But the one on the end, this was last spring. It was really sweet. Some of these kids really get into it. We can see who our future yoga instructors or counselors or whoever are, because they started holding class at recess. And so this is the yoga class. And so what we had to do was a couple of the girls, the one on the picture on the left with the bow in her hair, she liked to lead yoga. And after a few months of me leading the yoga, then the kids start leading it. And they get to choose the moves. They get to take us through the whole sequence. And so she started the recess yoga, and our job as the teacher on duty was to let them know when there was 10 minutes of recess left, because they would go to this particular patch of grass and they would sit down so that they could get themselves ready to come back into the building. And then the second graders, those were third graders, and then second graders were like, they were out on the playground at the same time. Can I go sit in that class? Yes, go sit in that class, And so it was totally led by kids, and they did this all spring, last spring, so that was really fun. So what are the benefits of mindfulness? Well, first of all, to be in the moment. to have your full attention here right now, not daydreaming about, what's for dinner or what you're going to see on TV last night or where you're going next. Not what happened earlier in the day that was really awful. I'm not going to perseverate on that, but I'm going to really think about right now. So it has a lot to do with being on task, right? Which is what we want our kids to be, on task. The ability to regulate one's emotions, I've touched on already. To learn the power of the pause so that we can think before we speak, which is always good. And we will respond instead of react. And those are 2 words I teach my kids right away in the beginning of the year. Responding is different than reacting. And when we get to the brain stuff, you'll see more of that. But we pause a lot, and I'll use that word in classes I'm teaching. I'm like, I need to pause for a moment. Mindfulness is for everybody, right? I tell the kids all the time, I wish I would have started this a long time ago. And it's for kids, it's for adults. To respond instead of react. React is that knee-jerk, that quick word that might come out, that sometimes physical. And instead, to give yourself that pause, that moment, to actually think and then respond in a better way so that you can hopefully have better relationships. Ability to manage stress. As I said before, kids are under stress just as much as we adults are. There's different kinds of stress. We have our basic needs stresses, for sure, of kids who are, food, sleep, clothing, whatever else. We have stresses of kids that are so overly scheduled. They're being taken after school from piano to basketball, then to dance, and they pick up food on the way, and then they come home, and then they might have time by 9 o'clock to have a quick shower or bath, and then they go to bed. And so I hear from kids about this, elementary school. Oh, I just want to chill. I just want to have some time. I hope we don't do anything this weekend. We're on the go all the time. So there are a lot of different things that kids can be feeling and going through. Sustained concentration and focus. Again, this is what we love in school. We want kids who can stay on task, who have sustained attention and focus to actually do the work and to be accessible to learning. And this is what I say that word a lot with my students as well. I'm like, are you feeling accessible? Are we going to work here today? Kind of thing. And they're like, yes, Be able to relate to oneself and others with kindness, compassion, empathy, appreciation, and acceptance. Again, these are kind of like those soft skills that are so important. My dad was in education for a long time. He was a principal for many, many years here in Cedar Rapids, 30-some years. And if anything, one of the biggest lessons, I learned a lot from him, but was that relationships are the most important thing. Life is relationships. And that whole saying, they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's very true. And so being able to relate to them, to get to know your kids, we make a big deal about that, but I want them to understand each other and get to know each other as well. Through mindfulness, through being able to regulate how we're feeling, and we learn to build some empathy, because it's not just about us then. As we begin to recognize it in ourselves, however we're feeling, we notice it in others. And that's what helps build that empathy. And so there are a lot of different lessons that we do that help lead to that. We do a lot with kindness, a lot with compassion, acceptance. This is just kind of interwoven throughout the day. It's just making it intentional and really noticing it, not just expecting it. A lot of times people think, oh, well, they learn that at home, and so many kids do. But it's also taking that time, like reading, like math, like social studies. A lot of this has to be intentionally taught for some kids, for them to understand how to get along well with each other in a group, in a school setting. And to have their best academic gains, highest levels of happiness. We want all of that for them. And so this can help lead to that from what I've seen. And then that social emotional intelligence, how to get along with others. Everything that we do with the mindfulness is research-based. There's so much out there. Harvard and Johns Hopkins, if you want to read about mindfulness, those two there are so many studies based from a lot of universities in that, but Harvard and Johns Hopkins has really taken a lead, I think, from a lot of the things that I read from them. Okay, so one of the things we just tell the kids, okay, mindfulness is just science, And it's really pretty cool. I have some great books. We do a lot with picture books. And there's just cool things about the brain. We just tell them we want them to know three parts. That's all they need to know. And so the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and the amygdala. So we start with the amygdala, and it is your guard dog. And so some of you might already know this, but again, bringing it back to the science and helping kids understand why they do what they do. I mean, it's all science. There's reasons for it. So we teach them about the amygdala. It's your guard dog. It protects us from threats. Not only real threats like life threats, but perceived threat. And that's where sometimes kids think someone calling them a name or having the argument at home, that is a perceived threat to them. The amygdala can just kick in, and that's where you might hit or yell or scream. We want, through mindfulness, it has been shown that the amygdala, the brain can actually be, we know it changes all the time. The brain is malleable. And so the amygdala can also be, I don't know, for lack of a better word, settled down by a lot of these activities. And it won't strike out as quickly. So we can actually help change brains by doing some mindfulness activities. So the amygdala is important to have. Hippocampus, well, there would be your social studies facts, which we're not going to have all kinds of dates for social studies and memorization, but it's where you store your memories, okay, and your learning. And then finally, your prefrontal cortex, it's the reasoning, the thinking center that controls all of our decision making. So the kids, we learn those three parts, and so then as decisions are made in the classroom, as things happen, we say, woo, the amygdala kicked in there, or, you know, oh my gosh. The kids will even say, my prefrontal cortex is hurting. They'll say, you know, like, oh, I'm like, oh, do we need a break? Has it just been too much? Yeah, we need a break. I'm afraid my amygdala is going to kick in here soon because I just need to get up. And so we talk about this so that they, again, it's giving them methods of control. They want to be able to control their behavior. They want to be able to make those decisions. And so bringing it back to the science of what our brain is doing and how we can help it with mindfulness is important. Of course, who doesn't love a therapy dog? And that is our therapy dog, Fendi. That's one of my students this year. He is sitting in our calming corner, and in most elementary schools, I know at least elementary, there's a space in your classroom where the kids can go if they feel like they're having an issue. Okay, if they just need some time out, they need a place to just process. My calming corner has some posters. He's doing 5-fingered breathing, which I will show you guys here in a minute. There's a lot of books there. There's little gadgets. I brought some props so you can see some things that the kids actually use. And we talk about the breath. And, you know, it used to be, wasn't it always frustrating when people would say to you, oh, just count to 10. You'll be fine. You know, you get upset. Just breathe. Well, there needs to be some intention behind it as far as, what do you mean, just breathe? How should I breathe? What do you mean, breathe? So we actually, from the first day of school, the kids lay on their backs. We put a book on their belly. We want to do balloon breathing, where you breathe, make your tummy really big, and now exhale. Teaching them not to keep a real shallow breath up here. And they're like, it sounds like you're going to cry. I'm like, yeah, because I'm all upset. See, I want to be calm, get it down here. So actually even teaching them different breathing techniques. And so when they're in this calming corner, they can breathe. There's posters reminding them of different ones they can use. There's other little gadgets that they can play with. I'll show you, like the pinwheel, stuff like that. And so we talk about the breath. And I'm like, when you're in line at the movie theater or, you know, a theme park, or you won't have always those little gadgets or fidget cubes or whatever with you that you think you might need, but you always have your breath. And so what can you do? And so shallow versus belly breaths, I just told you about. The books are hands on bellies. And as adults, I tell you, once I started learning about this has helped me so much. And if I find I'm starting to get stressed, I will just put my hands down here and just be super intentional about where I'm breathing from. And it's amazing, after about 5 or 6 good breaths, you can do that. Hot chocolate breath, you can try this. We've been drinking a lot of hot chocolate probably this winter. It's actually like I tell the kids, hold your cup, and then it's so hot you have to blow on it. Just like that. And so then I'll say, oh, boys and girls, let's quick switch whatever we're doing. Everyone do, 4 hot chocolate breaths. And they get their cup, and then they sit and they blow. Fog the mirror, Darth Vader breath. They love this, so Star Wars. Fog the mirror. This is your breath where you just take a deep inhale. And then here's the mirror. Remember when you used to do that and you'd fog it and then you write in it? Or else then they like to call it Darth Vader because it's, oh, like, Luke, I am your father. Then they try to say the whole Star Wars thing through it. But so again, that's just another big cleansing breath they can use. Bunny breath, you guys could all try it right now because you've been sitting for a while. And so the bunny breath is an energizing breath because mindfulness isn't all just quiet, like Zen, like we're just gonna chill out. It's dancing, it's up, it's being in the moment. What are we gonna have to do to get us back in the moment, focused? Maybe we need to get our wiggles out. So bunny breath is, you can just breathe in quick 3 times in your nose. And you do that like 4 or 5 times. Oh, good, now I'm feeling better. And it's amazing with the kids. Just a few different breaths, taking some breaks sometimes, and we don't have to get up and change the whole activity, but just by some different breathing techniques to get them more wide awake. And there's that woodcutter that Akwi was talking about, or some people call it the breath of joy. Woodcutter is kind of fun just because I've seen it done a couple of different ways. And you can start where you're inhaling and you do a continual inhale. You can go like, and then you grab your hands and then they just let loose. They lean over and like you're chopping wood and they just let it go. You know this, and we might do it like 5 times. And so some people call it the breath of joy, where you just breathe in and come up and then just, you just kind of fall over. It's just, again, it's just release of tension, it's release, it's waking yourself up so that you can get back to what you need to do. So again, for kids, for teachers, I think this is very important. One of the reasons that I got so interested in this was over the course of all these years, I sound so old, over 31 years, I have noticed bigger stress with teachers, and that has been touched upon. The burnout, sometimes initiatives, kids, there's a lot of different reasons people might be feeling stressed. Their own family lives, kids maybe a little bit more stress. It's interesting. Every year, I feel like as I've been teaching, I've had more students. We hear more about therapy, more kids going to therapy, even in elementary school. More kids maybe on medication. Just more stressed out kids. And so to me, that is one thing I've noticed over the years, and whether it's, like I said, all those other things I talked about earlier between just society, social things, things they're hearing and seeing. There's just, kids soak it up too. And so, but I just became so interested in that because I'm like, what are we going to help? How can we help these kids? What seeds can we plant early on to help them focus, to help them be happier, I guess. So the breath is one of those things. So some of the different tools, activities, things we have, we have our calming bottles, which some people used to call these like, they would use them for timeout, like for their 3-year-old or something. Like here, when it all settles, you can get up then, And so what we do is we take the same concept. They have them on their desks, and if one's feeling a little upset, they can just shake it up and they sit, and then they have permission to kind of stop for about 2 minutes, and they just breathe and they just watch everything settle. We talk about this as kind of like your brain all revved up, not thinking clearly, and then it settles and you're ready to go again. So just little visuals, tools, things that the kids can use. They help make those at the beginning of the year. The breathing ball, science people call it a Hoberman sphere, which is the real name for it. We call it the breathing ball, and our child that leads yoga opens it. We pause. So we inhale here. We pause. We exhale. We pause. We inhale. We pause. We exhale. And you do that like 5 or 6 times. It's amazing how quickly you can come down out of maybe a potentially angry situation. So that is the breathing ball. And in the calming corners, I have extras of all of these that the kids can just use them on their own. Pipe cleaners, beads, just string them on pipe cleaners. Inhale. Exhale as you slide one across. Really easy. There's music you can play, there's chimes, visualizations that I can read aloud, gratitude journals, things that the kids can write about. They write how they're grateful for each other, just a quick little journaling thing that we put in with our writing activities. And to finish up, with the tools, the girl in her, that's Lauren, the Kennedy High School girl. I wanted to include that picture because they did their big graduation walk last spring. And so then I had her as a third grader, and she's in her first year of college this year. And she came back and they walked the halls showing showing all the elementary kids that they're graduating. And she came into the classroom then to say hi, and we're getting ready to start yoga, and she's like, ooh, can I do this with you? And the kids were like, well, sure. And so when we have visitors come, the kids are like, well, you're going to do it with us, aren't you? And Dr. Buck actually got to do it with us one day when he was out, and he was such a good sport. The kids just loved it, and they were helping him too. I saw some kids beside Dr. Buck saying, no, put your feet together. No, do this. And, but Lauren, what she told me was, as a high school senior graduating, after we were done, here we're sitting in a wake pose, getting ready to set our intention for the day, which is like a goal. How are we going to be today? Lauren came up to me afterwards, and she said, this was amazing. You really, I wish we could have done this more when I was there, so even the older kids. All right, so to sum things up, when little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. That's very important. These are two of my favorite quotes. And Mr. Rogers, I'm convinced that when we help our children find healthy ways of dealing with their feelings, ways that don't hurt them or anyone else, we're helping to make our world a safer, better place. So I'll leave you with those, and thank you very much.